I always, when I was a kid and into my teens and into my 20s and 30s, sort of believed that there was some truth to it all. There were just too many similarities in the accounting of UFO sightings. And this was before the media embraced UFOs as a cultural pastime or as a kind of alternative religion. You're talking about witnesses who were seeing things in Des Moines, Iowa, and reporting the same thing that they were seeing in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Ronnie, I saw something last night that I can't explain.
So I really believed in this whole UFO phenomenon. And I thought it was really, really interesting that we didn't have to journey to the stars to make our discoveries, but in fact, beings from other stars have journeyed to our planet.
This is nuts.
So one night, when I was a young child, I don't remember what age I was, but we were living in New Jersey, so I must have been around 5 or 6 years old. And my dad woke me up in the middle of the night, and he said, "Come with me."
Sylvia, come on. We're going on a little adventure. Sylvia, Brad, come on, get up.
And I was really groggy. I remember my dad got me in the car. He said, "I have a surprise for you." And he drove me a while, and we drove to this field. And we got out of the car, and I kept saying, "Dad, what time is it?" And he kept saying, "It's the middle of the night." He didn't say what they said. It's the middle of the night. And there were all these people in this field, several dozen. And my dad brought a picnic blanket, and he put the blanket out on this grassy knoll, and we laid on the blanket, and we looked up at the sky. There was this fantastic meteor shower, like the Perseus meteor shower that we have sometimes. And I just remember looking up at the sky, and every 15 to 20 seconds, there was a fantastic of light across the sky. And I think that was my first introduction to the world beyond the earth. That probably first impregnated me with wanting to tell stories not of this world. Yeah, I was very influenced by J. Allen Hynek because he was not looking at UFOs as science fiction, but he was looking at them as science speculation.
And he was employed by the government for Project Blue Book for 20 years. Investigating all of these UFO things that were so big in the 50s.
In a nutshell, Hynek was a disbeliever who became a believer.
He found the witness reports very credible, and he found so many similarities from so many portions of America as well as throughout the world that he became a convert to the fact that the government was hiding something and something was afoot.
At the end of it, the government disbanded Project Blue Book and said no evidence of any kind, of any sort. And Dr. Henriksen, who was very much a skeptic and wanted to be a disbeliever because that was the scientific approach, Dr. Henriksen said they had several hundred cases of absolutely unexplained UFOs. He didn't say what they were. You know, he wasn't saying they were from outer space. But he said, we came across stuff, there was no possible way of debunking some of these things. It was unexplainable.
So I met with him, and I used him, and I picked his brain, and he consulted with me. He's even in the movie in a snippet of a scene in the third act. And I owe a lot to his instilling in me a professional's point of view on this kind of field reporting. And he helped me make the movie more credible than it would have been without his existence.
The term Close Encounter of the Third Kind is taken from Dr. Alan J. Hynek's book. He's who created the term Close Encounters.
Well, a close encounter of the first kind is one is close, but nothing really happened.
Close encounter of the first kind is visible contact with a UFO.
Forget the shape and forget how fast it's going. It's something that you just can't explain.
Close encounters of the second kind are those which leave a physical trace. Holes in the ground,
Burn rings,
broken tree branches,
telephone lines down,
animals disturbed,
the stopping of car engines.
And the close encounters of the third kind are the most interesting of all.
Close encounter of the third kind is really when you meet them.
Well, I had a lot of scenarios for hanging a UFO story on. I mean, I had a lot of premises, you know, on which to hang the UFO mythology, and one of them, of course, was that it was a story about a police officer. Police officers make very credible witnesses. And when they say they've seen something, you tend to believe them. I mean, at one point, I even thought that the character should be a military person, a debunker working for Project Blue Book.
Ladies and gentlemen, This is a flying saucer.
But anytime I feel characters in a uniform, they're not who we are. We don't identify with people in uniform. Sometimes we admire them and want to be like them, like Tom Cruise in Top Gun. But we don't really relate to people in uniform as rank and file Americans. So I try to make this person as common as possible. I wanted to make it about me and about my parents and about friends I knew. I wanted to make it a very accessible story about the common everyday individual who has a sighting that overturns his life as he once knew it and throws his personal life, throws his family life into complete upheaval as he starts to become more and more obsessed with his experience.
Mr. Neary, what did you expect to find? An answer. That's not crazy, is it?
If this is just nerve gas, how come I know everything in such detail? I've never been here before. How come I know so much? What the hell is going on around here? Who the hell are you people?
When I was shooting Jaws in Martha's Vineyard, in whatever year we were shooting that in, I guess that was in the early in 73 or 74, I told Richard the story of Close Encounters.
We were all hanging out together during the making of Jaws, and he was telling us about this next project that he was going to do, and he had meetings occasionally with the writers and his other producing partners, I guess. And he one night told me this story. At the time, the story was about an army guy.
The title wasn't Close Encounters in those days, but I told him I wanted to make a movie about, you know, about UFOs.
There were some mornings when I would accompany Stephen to his office and help him with the story of this next film. Still not thinking anything about my participating in it, until one day, I don't remember now exactly what happened, one day it became quickly or clearly evident to me that all of the thinking that Stephen had been doing about this character was wrong, and that I was going to guide him into the light as to what actor should play this role.
And, you know, it's funny, when you've got your guy right in front of you, sometimes you can't see your own hand in front of your face. And as Richard kept saying, I really want to play this character, please let me play this character, I tended to move on because I kept seeing him as the ichthyologist, Hooper in Jaws, and I couldn't see beyond the character that he was playing for me in the current production. So I looked in other directions, and I remember my first choice was Steve McQueen. I remember calling Steve McQueen on the phone. I'd never met him before, and I called him and I introduced myself to him, and I said, I'm making this UFO movie. I'd love you to play the lead. Would you read the script? And he was very cool about it. He said, I certainly would. So I sent him over the script, and then he, through his agent, he asked to meet with me. And I went to meet with Steve McQueen in Trancas, California, where he had a house. And he wanted to meet me at a bar called the Doom Room. I've never been to a bar in my life. It was the first bar I'd ever really gone into. And I remember he tried to break up a kind of fisticuffs in the bar and almost got involved himself. And I think only because I was there he didn't get involved. But we talked about it for a while, and eventually he said to me something that I'll never forget. He said, I've decided I can't play this character. And I felt I had him, because I even had 3 beers to his 14. You know what I'm saying? I was drinking the best I could. I don't drink. I mean, alcohol to me, half a glass of wine, I get a little ditzy. But Steve finally told me he couldn't play the character, and I said, why? He said, because I can't cry on film. I've never been able to cry on film. And this character, the way you have in your script, it even says he walks up and he turns, looks at his family, and he cries as he goes onto the mothership. And I said, okay, I'll cut out the crying. I'll cut out the crying part. He said, no. He said, the crying broke my heart. The crying actually almost made me cry reading the script. But he said, but once that camera's rolling, I don't think I'm going to be able to deliver the goods to you. And I respectfully have to, say I can't do it. And it broke my heart. But we became kind of friends after that, so I got something out of the experience. I got to know him, and who I truly admire, an actor and a physical actor, and also thought a very emotional actor, who I had always admired and never gotten to know, and I got to know him a little bit, and that was a privilege. So I went to Dustin Hoffman. He turned me down. I went to Al Pacino. I went to Gene Hackman. I went to a lot of actors who said no.